All right, here's a full 20-minute live read narrative you can use from the India Basin shoreline that ties together everything you've seen and learned over the last couple of weeks. It flows like a story, starting with place and history, moving through the struggle and lessons, and ending with a vision for the future. I've kept the tone conversational but substantive so it works for your audience without losing the depth. Live script: India Basin, gateway to the past and future. Opening: set the scene. Right now I'm standing here at India Basin Shoreline Park, a place that until recently was just a quick stop for me, 5, maybe 10 minutes with the dog before heading to shoot at the Hunters Point Lookout. Back then I saw granite blocks set into the shore, a calm bit of water, and not much else. But now, after 2 weeks of digging into the history and walking the southern waterfront from here down to Candlestick Point State Recreation Area, this spot feels completely different. This is where the next chapter of the Southeast San Francisco shoreline begins. And it's not starting because of the park itself. It's starting because of transportation, a planned ferry terminal that will plug this shoreline into the rest of the bay. 1. The geographic chain India Basin is the northern end of a waterfront corridor that runs south through Hunters Point Shipyard, Candlestick Point State Recreation Area, and eventually, if the city follows through, a continuous bay trail link to the very tip of Candlestick. I've been to all 3 of these anchor points now. From the Hunters Point Lookout, you see the whole bay, the shipyard below, and you can feel the weight of its industrial past. At Candlestick State Park, you feel the open space, but also the isolation. No bathrooms, no drinking water, and fences where public shoreline could be. Here at India Basin, you can actually feel momentum. Construction crews on site, park landscaping underway, the promise of a ferry. It's the ignition point, the history beneath our feet. This shoreline has layers. Ohlone and other native peoples use this bay for fishing, transport, and seasonal shelter. Archaeological work during any new excavation here should be led by native teams. The way a California State Parks employee told me he'd want his own home park run, with a deep connection to cultural resources, even on a limited budget. In the 1800s, this basin became home to wooden shipbuilding, craftsmen using tools like caulking irons to drive cord into the seams between planks, sealing holes for the schooners and ferries that once defined the bay. Then came steel, warships, and finally the aviation era. Hunters Point became a military shipyard, and nearby facilities worked on aircraft as well. The wood-to-steel transition here mirrors the wood-to-aluminum shift that Santa Monica Airport, KS, saw in aviation, and KSMO could see its own aluminum-to-composite transformation if we play it right. 3. The social story. This is also a story about people and how they've been treated. In What Will We Do, thousands of African Americans came west for shipyard jobs and settled in Bayview Hunters Point. In the 1960s, the Black Panther Party ran free breakfast programs and community survival projects in nearby neighborhoods. Over the decades, redevelopment promises pushed out locals, sometimes with the language of revitalization, sometimes with fences and no access signs. The people who built, lived, and fought here deserve more than being priced out when the view becomes profitable again. 4. The environmental and testing lessons. North of here at Herons Head Park, you've got a living example of toxic to green conversion. It's built right next to the site of the old PG&E Hunters Point power plant, which community activism finally shut down in 2006. That fight was about air pollution, asthma rates, and contamination, and it led to one of the first major industrial removals here. But there's also a darker caution. At Hunters Point Shipyard itself, soil and building testing for radioactive and chemical contamination was falsified. No public results were released for years. Bad testing doesn't just risk health, it stalls projects, extends the life of fences, degrades the site further, and wastes space for decades. In some cases here, we're still fighting PFAS contamination, those forever chemicals linked to firefighting foam. Another parallel for sites like KSMO that have long firefighting histories. The lesson: if you want development to move, you clean it right the first time and keep it transparent. 5. The struggle of the transition. All along this southern shoreline, there's a pattern. Transportation and housing make the profit math work for developers. Parks and cultural spaces are the political sweetener, promised early, delivered late, and often cut back. At Candlestick, early redevelopment plans had far more parkland. Over time, those acres shrank to make room for more housing and commercial space. That's exactly the mistake we have to prevent here, and at KSMO, by locking in park acreage, trails, and public amenities as prerequisites, not afterthoughts. 6. The model we should follow. Use transit as the funding engine. Here it's the ferry. At KSMO, it could be the subway, buses, or even boring tunnel connectors. Tie any commercial or housing entitlements to completion of parks and paths first. Respect and preserve the cultural trades, shipbuilding here, airplane building at KSMO, by weaving them into the new economy. Build for multimodal, eVTOL pads, electric buses, regional trains, bike and walking paths, and coastal links that can handle ground effect seaplanes, hydrofoils, high-speed ferries, think Regent Craft, zero-emission designs, hybrid and hydrogen craft for coast-wide connectivity. NASHA 7, the positive future. If we get it right, this India Basin ferry terminal won't just serve downtown SF. It can be the northern gateway to a California coastal mobility network. Ferry down the peninsula. Transfer to hydrofoil or ground effect craft to Monterey. Hop eVTOL to LA. At the other end, KSMO could be the southern gateway with electric and hydrogen seaplanes linking Marina del Rey to San Diego, Catalina, and the Central Coast. 8. The underground layer. Just like here, any major excavation at KSMO should be an opportunity for archaeological and cultural research, Native American settlements, underground shelters and cold storage pits, World War II era infrastructure. That work should be part of the budget and part of the storytelling, not hidden in an appendix. 9. The closing message. Standing here today, I see the granite blocks, the quiet water, and I imagine ferries, eVTOLs, and bike paths stretching down to Candlestick and beyond. But I also see the history, the native villages, the shipbuilders, the Black Panthers, the locals still here fighting for a place in the future. If we're going to spend billions transforming this shoreline or transforming KSMO in Santa Monica, we have to make sure we don't just replace fences with new fences. The formula is simple. Transit funds it. Parks and paths come first. Housing and profit come only after public promises are met. Respect the people, respect the history, clean it right, connect it all. And California's coast can be linked by air, water, and land in ways we've only just started to imagine. If you read this at a measured pace with pauses for shots and pans, you'll easily hit your 20-minute live window, and it will thread together the history, the cautions, and the future vision. Do you want me to also make you a bullet point cue sheet so you can riff on these sections without reading the full script word for word? That way your live feels more spontaneous, but still hits all the points. Got it. If you want to stretch this into the full 20 minutes, we can weave in more of the stories you've told me before and slow the pacing with personal vignettes. That keeps your audience engaged while still hitting the history, the struggle, and the vision. Here's the extended version with your own anecdotes and observations layered in. Extended live script. India Basin, Gateway to the Past and Future. When I first pulled in here, it wasn't for research. I was just on my way to Hunters Point Lookout to film, and I stopped for maybe 5 minutes. Walked the dog. Sat on those big granite blocks, the ones shaped like little staircase chairs. I looked out at the water, thought, nice spot, and moved on. 2 weeks later, I'm back. But I'm standing here with a totally different perspective, because now I've walked the chain from here down through Hunters Point and Candlestick, and I've seen the culture, the history, the promises, and the problems that tie this whole waterfront together. 1. This is the starting line. You can think of India Basin like the top domino. It's the place where the chain of change will start, not because the park alone is special, but because this is where the ferry terminal will be. And transportation? Transportation is what actually gets projects moving. It's what makes the funding work, the timelines real, and the political will line up. You promise a ferry and a connection, and suddenly you've got the energy to redo a shoreline, restore habitats, and lay trails that have been planned for decades. Hazard 2. First-hand proof of the link. The other day I was up the Hunters Point Lookout, and I saw a couple out biking. Half an hour later, I'm here at India Basin, and they ride past me again. That's when I realized people are already linking these spaces in their own ways, even before there's a continuous trail. If they're making that ride now, imagine what it'll be like when the shoreline path is safe, direct, and beautiful the whole way. 3. History under the waterline. Long before the ferry plan, before the shipyard cranes, this was native land. The Ohlone people fished here, gathered here, built seasonal shelters. That connection hasn't gone away. And any new construction here should have native archaeologists and historians leading the work. Then came the shipbuilders. In the 1800s, they were building wooden schooners here, hammering and caulking seams with hemp and pitch. By World War II, the industry had shifted. Wood gave way to steel, and the shipyard to the south became one of the busiest military ports on the West Coast. I can't help but think about the parallel to Santa Monica Airport, wood to steel here, aluminum to composites there. These shifts mark the turning points of both places. 4. The people who built this place. During World War II, thousands of African Americans moved here for shipyard jobs. Bayview Hunters Point became one of the city's strongest black communities. By the 1960s, the Black Panther Party was feeding children, running clinics and teaching history in nearby neighborhoods. And then, over decades, redevelopment pressure pushed people out. I met a local black business owner recently, runs a shop not far from here, and she told me how important it is to her to stay in the neighborhood where she grew up. She called it my town, my people. That's the kind of voice we have to protect in the next phase of change. 5. Heron's Head and the power plant. Just north of here is Heron's Head Park, a restored wetland with a community eco-center. Right next to it, the site of the old PG&E Hunters Point power plant. That plant spewed pollution into the neighborhood for decades before it was finally shut down in 2006 after relentless community pressure. Heron's Head shows what's possible when contaminated industrial land is reclaimed for public space. But Hunters Point Shipyard shows the cautionary side. Falsified soil tests, PFAS contamination from firefighting foams, years of delay. Bad testing doesn't just stall projects, it keeps fences up and land wasted for decades. 6. Candlestick's warning. Farther south at Candlestick State Park, the story is one of shrinking promises. Early redevelopment plans promised far more parkland than what's on the table now. Over time, that acreage has been chipped away to make room for more housing and commercial projects. And the park space that does exist, no bathrooms, no drinking water, no reason for people to linger. That's the pattern we have to stop here and in Santa Monica. You can't let the parks and paths be phase 4 after the money-making parts are done. They have to be prerequisite 7, the state park's perspective. I had a conversation with a California State Parks employee about whether he'd want the state to manage his own home park. He said yes, because even with limited budgets, state parks has deep connections to native communities and the resources to protect cultural sites. That kind of stewardship is exactly what you need when you're building on land with as much layered history as this. Hashtag 8, the Future Network. If we get this right, India Basin won't just connect to Candlestick. It'll connect to high-speed ferries, maybe even zero-emission designs from companies like Regent, hydrofoils skimming the coast, ground effect seaplanes linking bay cities in minutes, eVTOL flights connecting to airports like KSMO in Santa Monica, where electric aviation could tie into the Expo line, buses, and even boring tunnel service. This is how you build a California coastal mobility loop, India Basin as the NorCal Gateway, KSMO as the SoCal Gateway. Lessons for KSMO. From what I've seen here, the formula is clear. Transit funds it. Ferry here, subway bus at KSMO. Parks and paths come first. Don't even talk housing until public promises are built and open. Preserve the trades, shipbuilding here, airplane building there, and integrate them into training programs for locals. Use big moves to drive small equity wins, like guaranteeing space and rent protections for local businesses. Research underground history during construction, shelters, native artifacts, wartime infrastructure. Tama 10, closing. Looking out now at the granite blocks, the ripples against the shoreline, I can see both the past and the possible future. If we let this become another decades-long holding pattern, contaminated land, bad testing, broken promises, we lose twice, the land and the trust. But if we lock in the right sequence, transit first, parks and trails next, profit last, we can link California's coast by air, sea, and land while honoring the people and the history that are already here. If you read this version at a slower pace with some pauses for B-roll, you'll easily fill the 20 minutes. Do you want me to also build you a one-page talk map so you can see the flow of this story while you're live without having to scroll? That way you can riff while staying on track.
We're really excited to be testing the foiling capability of Viceroy prototype. Up until now, we've gotten it through testing on the hull. Today, we're going to be testing the foiling mode. So it's the first time that we're going to be doing it, actually lifting it up out of the water, testing out all the control systems, everything that controls the vehicle and helps keep it in a stable, safe condition at about 1.5 meters from the water.
Yeah, say we do the whole thing and then come back this direction, and then that'll be the best way to flip.
And clear for R15 full transition. Yeah, clear for 16 knots.
Copy, clear 16 knots. Control line condition.
Everybody cross their fingers, cross their toes. All right, here we go. Let's go. Woo! 16 knots.
It was such a interesting feeling to be, down in the water like a boat and then just smoothly climb up out of the water, cruising right along, and it's real stable. You can tell taking off from that type of position is going to be just a great experience. After we came back down, we did a high five, fist bump. We were really excited.
Yeah, dude.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad.
It was a great success.
We were clapping, we were cheering. It was cool. It was real cool.
It's awesome.
Done the foils the first time. Pretty cool.
Go around the room, give me a go for checklist are complete. Ready for aircraft handover to the pilot for load, starting with controls.
Controls go. EPU go.
Vibes go. Batteries go.
Test DC, aircraft is yours for power up.
And we'll be picking up for the hover out of ground effect, and then we'll send the speed. Here we go, coming up.
Douglas, airplane builder, shows Edsel Ford and Charles Sorensen of the Ford Company one of the new attack bombers being built for Uncle Sam. Similar types are seeing action with the RAF and are said to have a top speed of 350 miles an hour. The auto company is going to manufacture parts for these and other planes to be assembled at big Midwest plants. This is Big Defense News.
And Douglas aircraft history together into one forward-looking picture. Closing vision. From past, here's how you can wrap it all up for your audience so it flows naturally from what you've just shown them into the vision you want them to leave with. Tying Regent, Joby, the Berkut 540, and Douglas aircraft history together into one forward-looking picture. Closing vision. From past runways to future flight paths. You've just seen it. The Regent hydrofoil skimming the water, Joby's eVTOL lifting quietly into the air, the Berkut 540 that was hand-built right in Santa Monica, and the black and white footage of the Douglas aircraft plant with row after row of workers turning raw aluminum into the airplanes that carried us through World War II and beyond. This is our inheritance, not just the machines, but the culture of building that made those machines possible. Here in Santa Monica, that culture is sitting on a piece of land, KSMO, that's about to be transformed. And right here in India Basin, we can see the same story unfolding. An industrial shoreline in transition, the promise of new transit, and the question of whether the people and the history that shaped it will still be part of its future. The future I see, a California coastal mobility loop with two gateways, north, India Basin Ferry and eVTOL hub, linked to hydrofoils, ground effect seaplanes, and a shoreline trail down to Candlestick. South, Santa Monica Airport hub, linking electric aircraft, hydrogen seaplanes from Marina del Rey, and high-speed ferries down the coast. These aren't isolated projects. They're connected by shared values. Transit-first funding models that make parks, trails, and public spaces the first deliverable. Local jobs and training in new trades, just like Douglas once did for aluminum aircraft, and like India Basin could do now for maritime craft. preservation of cultural and industrial history, shipbuilding here, airplane building there, woven into the design and programming so history isn't just a plaque, it's a living skill. The big shift, India Basin was wood to steel. Santa Monica was aluminum to jet composites. The next shift is composites to clean propulsion, electric hybrid hydrogen, carried by designs that move as seamlessly over water as through the air. What we can build together. If we do it right, you'll be able to leave Santa Monica on an eVTOL, touch down on the water in Marina del Rey, transfer to a hydrofoil, and be in Monterey in under 2 hours. You could fly the coast in a ground effect seaplane, stopping at hubs like India Basin that are tied into ferries, bikes, and shoreline parks. These hubs become places to gather, with trails, markets, cultural spaces, not just transit stops. This is the vision. Take the innovation spirit of Douglas, the craftsmanship of the Berkut builders, the sustainability of Regent and Joby, and anchor it in places like India Basin and KSMO with real community benefit. That's how you connect the California coast, and that's how you make sure the next chapter honors both the people who were here first and the ones who will inherit what we build. I can tighten this into a 2-minute punchy closing read so you can drop it at the very end of your stream, right after the historical footage. Do you want me to make that short version for you? Here's an extended wrap-up you can deliver to close the stream. About twice the length, so it lets you breathe, reflect, and give the audience a satisfying wind-down after such a big day. All right, folks, I think that's where we're going to wrap it up for today. It's been a full day, 2 shoots back-to-back. We started this morning with the VR session, flying and exploring in a completely different medium, using simulation to test ideas and to see the world from new angles. Then this afternoon, we brought it back into the real world here at India Basin, where the water meets the city and the shoreline is in the middle of its own transformation. It's been a good pairing. The VR shoot was about possibility, showing how tech lets us prototype experiences before they're real. And here at India Basin, it's the opposite, a place that's real and physical, with a deep history where you can already see the next chapter starting. We've talked about the layers here, native shoreline, shipbuilders, the Black Panthers, and community life, the years of industrial use, the contamination, the activism, the victories, and the vision that's coming together now around transit, parks, and the water. We've connected that to a bigger California story, shipbuilding here in the north, airplane building in Santa Monica in the south, and a future where clean ferries like hydrofoils, eVTOLs, and even ground effect seaplanes connect the coast. We've seen how the mistakes made at Candlestick, the shrinking parkland, the delays from bad testing can be avoided if we do it in the right order. Transit first, parks and public space next, housing, and profit last. Today was also about perspective, seeing the same granite blocks I stood on weeks ago, but now with a deeper understanding of how they fit into the chain from here to Hunters Point to Candlestick. Even watching that biking couple earlier link Hunters Point to India Basin without any official continuous trail yet, it's a reminder that the human link is already there and the infrastructure needs to catch up. So thank you for being here today, for joining me in both worlds, the virtual and the physical, and for letting me share not just the view, but the history, the challenges, and the possibilities. I hope you're seeing the future I see, And maybe you're starting to picture how these pieces could fit together into something bigger for all of us. All right, that's it for today. Let's end the stream, and I'll see you next time. Do you want me to also work in a quick call to action sentence so viewers know what they can do to stay connected to this vision after the stream? That can make your closings even stronger.